The alarm shrieked through the dormitory halls at 0300 hours. Vash bolted upright in his bed, his four eyes snapping open as emergency protocols flooded his neural implant. The message was clear and terrifying. Juvenile wing evacuation failure. 23 cubs unaccounted for. He grabbed his communicator and sprinted down the corridor, his clawed feet scraping against the metal floor. The juvenile wing housed the station's youngest residents, children of various species whose parents worked in deep space assignments. As the head of juvenile care, Vash had one responsibility above all others: keep the cubs safe. Report, he barked into his comm as he reached the main gathering point. Sir, we have thermal signatures in Dormitory 7, but the doors won't open, came the panicked voice of his assistant. The fire suppression system activated, but something is jamming the override codes. We can't get to them. Vash's blood turned cold. Dormitory 7, 23 cubs. The youngest group on the station, none older than 6 standard years. He could see the smoke beginning to seep from beneath the sealed doors. Get the cutting equipment. Now, sir, that will take at least 20 minutes. The door is reinforced durasteel. A figure appeared beside him, moving with the distinctive fluid grace that marked humans. Kalin wore sleep clothes and had clearly been awakened by the alarm. His dark hair stuck up at odd angles, but his eyes were sharp and alert. The cubs? Kalin asked. Trapped. 23 of them. The door won't open and we can't cut through in time. Vash's voice cracked. In his 20 years of service, he had never lost a cub. The thought of 23 dying while he stood helpless made his legs weak. Kalin moved to the door without hesitation. He placed both palms flat against the durasteel surface, then pressed his ear against it. The corridor had gone silent. Every staff member present watched the human with confusion and desperate hope. They're scared but alive, Kalin said softly. I can hear them crying. The cutting equipment, Vash began, will take too long. Kalin stepped back and examined the door frame. This is a standard emergency seal, right? Magnetic locks with a mechanical backup. Yes, but the system is completely jammed. We've tried every override. I'm not going to override it. Kalin flexed his fingers, rolling his shoulders like he was preparing for heavy exercise. I'm going to open it. Vash stared at him. That door is designed to withstand explosive decompression. It takes 4 mechanical lifts working in tandem to move it manually. You're saying you can. Kalin was already moving. He wedged his fingers into the hairline crack where the door met the frame. Every muscle in his arm stood out in sharp relief as he pulled. Nothing happened for 3 long seconds. Then the metal groaned. The sound echoed through the corridor like a dying creature. Vash watched in disbelief as the durasteel door began to bend. Kalin's face turned red with effort, veins standing out on his neck and forehead. His feet scraped backward across the floor as he threw his entire body weight into the pull. The door moved. First a centimeter, then 2, then 5. The magnetic seals sparked and failed under the impossible force. Kalin roared with effort, a sound that was more animal than civilized, and the door suddenly gave way with a screech of tortured metal. Smoke poured out into the corridor. Kalin dropped the door and plunged into the haze without hesitation. Vash followed, his translator picking up the terrified cries of the cubs. Through the smoke, he could see Kalin moving with methodical efficiency. The human scooped up 2 Velen cubs, one under each arm, and carried them to the door. He handed them to waiting staff members, then disappeared back into the smoke. Again and again, Kalin emerged carrying cubs. Some clung to his shoulders. Others he carried in his arms like they weighed nothing. A tiny Crescian cub, barely old enough to walk, rode on Kalin's back with her small tendrils wrapped around his neck. The smoke was getting thicker. Vash counted the cubs as they emerged. 18, 19, 20. Kalin, that's enough. Vash shouted into the smoke. Get out of there. No response. The fire suppression foam was beginning to fill the room, and visibility was near zero. Then Kalin appeared at the doorway, his face blackened with soot, carrying 2 cubs in his arms and somehow supporting a third on his shoulders. He stumbled and nearly fell, but steadied himself and delivered all 3 to safety. 23, Kalin said, his voice hoarse from smoke inhalation. He bent over, hands on his knees, coughing violently. Vash quickly counted again. 23 cubs, all accounted for, all breathing, all alive. The medical team was already checking them for injuries, but aside from smoke inhalation and fear, they appeared unharmed. He turned to Kalin, who was now sitting on the floor with his back against the wall. A medic was checking his vitals while several cubs had escaped their caretakers and clustered around him, touching his arms and face with small hands and tentacles. "You bent a Durasteel door," Vash said quietly, "with your bare hands." Kalin shrugged, still catching his breath. "Adrenaline is a hell of a drug. That door requires 4 mechanical lifts." "Yeah, well." Kalin smiled weakly as a Velen cub climbed into his lap and pressed her head against his chest. "They're just kids. You do what you have to do." Vash looked at the ruined door, its frame bent and twisted like soft clay. He looked at the 23 cubs, now safe and surrounded by relieved caretakers. He looked at Kalin, this human who had appeared on their station 6 months ago to study their educational systems. The galaxy knew humans as brilliant diplomats, creative thinkers, and adaptable survivors. What the galaxy didn't fully understand was what happened when you threatened something a human cared about. What happened when you put children in danger in front of a human. The roll call showed 0 cubs in that room, Vash said softly. The system said it was empty. Systems fail. Kalin coughed again, and another cub gently patted his shoulder in concern. "But we don't have to." The human closed his eyes, surrounded by alien children who had no concept of how impossible his rescue had been. To them, he was just Kalin, the strange human who told funny stories and never got tired of their questions. To Vash, he was something else entirely. A reminder that humanity came from a world so harsh it had forged its inhabitants into something simultaneously fragile and unbreakable. A species that could bend Durasteel with desperate strength when the ones they protected needed them. "Thank you," Vash whispered. Kalin opened his eyes and smiled. "That's what humans do. We show up for our kids. All of them."